everyone, Professor K here, and I want to take a look at true, false, and comparison in JavaScript. Now, we've been talking a lot about loops and logic and getting Animal Crossing names out, but what we've kind of skimmed over is exactly how those things work. So right now, we're going to talk a little bit about the basis of those loops, and then we're going to talk about logic next. So let's find out how these loops work behind the scenes and what they're checking against to see if they should execute. Let's get started. All right, so here we have our true, false, and comparison Animal Crossing names. And I'm just going to actually fork this so that I don't accidentally overwrite this with the solution here. So just give this a moment to show up. And again, what we're looking at today is what exactly is it about that loop that allows us to say whether or not it should run. And what that is comparison, right? Comparison and true or false are kind of the key pieces that make this happen. So I'm just going to rename this solution just so you can all see what's going on. All right, so let's take a look at what's happening in here. First of all, we have this statement that we're evaluating. I is less than animals.length. So what do you think would happen if we console log this out instead of Isabel, Brewster, and Pascal? Let's find out. Let's see exactly what happens. So console.log I is less than animals.length. Gonna save this, clear out the console, and let's run it and see what kind of console logs we get. All right, here, so check this out. We are seeing true, and then the for loop result. True, and then the for loop result. So what's happening is this is only running when this statement evaluates to true. Now, what if we do less than or equal to animals.length and see what that looks like? Let's save this and run. And remember, we said that this is going to give us some problems. So here we have true Isabel, true Brewster, true Pascal. And now when we evaluate I is less than or equal to animals.length, we see false. And the reason why that is happening is because, actually at this point, this should be less than or equal to, it should be equal to animals.length. So it should have said true, but given us this undefined error. So that's really interesting. Let's dig into that. Let's console.log I at that time, and then console.log animals. Oh, do you see what happened? I see it. Okay, check this out. Console.log I is less than animals.length. So you know what? I didn't change my statement down here to double check that this is true. All right, so let's try this one more time. Let's run that. Always double check your logic, right? Always double check that what you're evaluating makes sense. Okay, so this is more like what I was expecting. True Isabel, true Brewster, true Pascal. And now I, at this point, is 3. It is equal to animals.length, so that evaluates to true. However, at this point, animals at 3 is undefined. And remember, that's because this is position 0, this is position 1, this is position 2. So the length, the number of items in here is 3, but position 0, 1, and 2, there is no position 3. So I know I keep repeating that, but it's a really important concept for you to get. All right, so let's take a look now that we have a little bit better idea of how true and false work in here, exactly what we can do for true and false in comparison. So here I'm just going to save this and we're going to clear this out, and let's see if some things are true, right? Let's try taking out the items in animals, and then let's see. We're just going to comment out our for loop here. I just want to play around with true and false values. I want to see what kinds of stuff spit out true and what kinds of stuff spit out false. So let's try just real simple example, console.log animals.length. And what this says is animals.length, what is it? Let's find out. All right, so we're cleared. I'm going to save and run, and let's see what the length is. 3. Let's try taking out all the animals and run and see what happens. 0. All right. Let's see if animals exist. So how could we do that? If animals exist, that's like a true or false. Does it exist or does it not exist? So we could do this by comparing it to a value. And we would know if animals existed by checking if animals.length is not 0. So not is going to use the exclamation point. It's kind of like, whoa, not. And then equals next to it. And we're going to get in the habit of using strict comparison. That means that whenever you check your values, here we're using not and then double equals, and we're going to say 0. All right, so if animals exists, the length should be not 0, right? That's exactly what we're looking for here. So let's clear this out, save, and run. See what happens. True, animals exist. And if we don't have animals, if we take them out, this should now return false. Save, clear, run. Let's see what happens. False, exactly what I expected. And that's why this is so good for checking if something exists in an array. In fact, you could say like, if this doesn't exist, I think it might say animals is undefined. Let's find out. Yeah, animals is not defined. So we could animals triple equals undefined, or here's some logic coming in, or 2 straight bars, animals, that length is 0. So this would say animals don't exist. Oh, that's so sad. All right, well, let's see what happens anyway. All right, so let's run this. Animals is not defined. This might work a little bit better in a function. Let's do if console.log the animals don't exist. All right, so what are we looking at here? This is an if statement. In an if statement, you have a condition, just like a loop actually. So you know how your for loop, you kind of set things up, you kind of set up some rules, and then you do something as a result of that. Here, you're doing the same thing, but now if checks whether or not it should execute the stuff in between your 2 brackets based on whether or not the statement inside those parentheses evaluates to true or false. So we're going to check if we're going to log if animals don't exist. All right, so if animals is undefined or animals.length is 0, it should put something in the console for us. So let's run this and see if I got it right. I probably didn't. I didn't get it right. All right, so what if this was not in a string? Let's try that. Sometimes I put things in strings and it really shouldn't be. Why would that matter? Because undefined is like a real special kind of thing. Maybe we can use a different kind of condition here. How about log if animals do exist? All right, so if animals do exist, animals has to be defined, so not undefined. And actually, so not undefined, and it has to be a length greater than 0. So let's see if this works. This should not log out anything because the animals don't exist. Animals is not defined. There's a way to get around that, but my teacher skills are failing me. All right, so let's go back to animals being up here. Const animals. Actually, let's just leave that like that. Save, run. Yeah, it wants me to put things in here. All right, so equals an array, and then we're going to make an object for each animal. Name Isabel. That's a string, right? Because it's her name, not like a number, not like a true false. Then let's do dog true. And then why don't we do, let's check if these are dogs or not dogs. Name Brewster. Brewster's not a dog. Dog is false. All right. So let's see if the animals do exist. Let's find out. The animals do exist. And why do they exist? Because animals is not undefined and animals.length is greater than 0. All right, so let's kind of, let's check if each animal is a dog. So we're going to use this dog parameter, true or false, to check whether or not each animal is a dog. And remember that when we want to do each in something, when we want to like check if each something is going on, we want to use our for loop. So I'm just going to copy paste this for loop here, and then I'm going to combine this if statement with the for loop. Now, actually, I'm not even going to do that. So here we were looking at animals.name. Let's just copy that for a moment. And now I'm going to do let isDog equal animals.dog. And what that's going to do is check each animal and see what the value of dog is, true or false. So let's just console.log dog out. See what's going on. So now we're not checking for the animals existing anymore. Now we're checking if each animal is a dog. Let's save and run and see what happens. Oh, whoops. You know what I did? Here's isDog, and I tried to console.log dog. I like using is in front of variables that are like supposed to be true or false, because it kind of like suggests, you know, it's supposed to be true or it's supposed to be false. Okay, let's give this one more run and see if it works. True, false, and then animals is undefined. Oh, right, that's because we're using that less than or equals. All right, let's clear this out. We always want it to be less than animals.length. Oh, we know this, Professor K. We went over this a million times. I know, but it'll trip you up, I promise. So I keep repeating it, keep saying, okay, this is what's happening here. Always be thinking through things. All right, so we've got true and we've got false. That's because Isabel is a dog, Brewster is not a dog. And we can tell that from animals. All right, so why don't we now do something special to say if it's a dog, if it is a dog, console.log. Actually, let's just do tell the user that it's a dog. Okay, so instead of just console.logging it's a dog now we're going to do a little bit more complicated stuff here. We're going to say if, right? Look, you can even see it in our kind of goal statement here, our problem statement. What are we supposed to do? We're checking if something is, right? So look at that, it's right here, if something's going on, do something. And we're going to write this, we're just gonna console.log, it's a dog. In fact, to make this even clearer, let's try some new syntax here. We are going to use these tick marks. So these are at the upper left hand of your keyboard, and they are like a tick. There's like a little tilde above them. These tick marks are special. They will let you use a variable right in line and print it out to the console. Okay, so what does that mean? It means if you do something like reference animals .name in here and you do it in like a special way, then it should print out just fine. So here's what you do to make this happen. You're going to use a $, and then curly braces, and then inside put in whatever you want to output. So we're going to do animals.name and then say is a dog. And what were we doing again? Right, if statement. So if it is a dog, tell the user that it's a dog. So we're checking is dog up here. So if is dog triple equals true, we're going to log out that this is a dog. Now I'm in the habit of putting spaces around my parentheses just because that's how WordPress coding standards does it. But I think in your coding standards, there's no spaces here. So just keep that in mind while I'm demoing. It's a habit I'm in. All right, so let's run this and see what we get. Isabel's a dog. But what about Brewster? Wouldn't it be nice to know what Brewster is or what's happening with Brewster? So if we want to do something in situations other than when your if statement is true, that is called an else. And you can chain these together. So here we have if dog equals true. Say whichever piece we're on is a dog. So here we're getting animals.name, and that's logging out Isabel using the special syntax and these special tick marks. Now, just as a quick note, if you don't use these special tick marks, you just try and use a string here, it's not going to work quite the same. So let's see what that looks like. Oh, CodePen, you are just being a pain right now. Okay. All right, so this isn't a string. So what would happen if we ran this right now? What would happen if we did this? See, animals.name is a dog. So that's not what we want. You always have to use that special tick mark syntax to get the variable to print out like that. But it's a nice handy shortcut. All right, so getting back to our if statement. When something isn't true, we can do something else. So here in our problem statement, we could say otherwise else, say the animal name is not a dog. All right, so here in our problem statement, we are saying if dog equals true, do something. And then from there, we can add to this and say else, in brackets, do something if that's not true. So here, we are just going to repeat the same thing. Console.log animal.name is not a dog. And now let's see what this final iteration looks like. All right, so let's run this. Kind of like dancing around while doing my code. Isabel is a dog. Brewster is not a dog. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Really clear, really easy to tell what's going on. In fact, now if we add more Animal Crossing characters, let's add, oops, make sure you don't have multiple commas there. Let's add Pascal to the mix. And now when we've added Pascal, it should go through all three of these animals automatically. We shouldn't even need to change anything in our script. So let's run it and see what happens. Check that out! Pascal is not a dog. So why does this work? Because we're dynamically checking what animals.length is. If you were to do like I equals 3 here, or I is less than 3, and just be like, well, I know that is 3 animals long, it would work. But then when you go to add to it later, you wouldn't be getting the benefit of getting the new information out to the user. So that's a really important reason why you would want to use, say, animals.length, something dynamic versus a fixed value like 3. Cool. Oh, so we got our for loop. We've even nested a little bit of logic in here. We've gotten to learn some true and false values, and we've learned a little bit about comparison. So here we have, let's just do some simple comparison work. Let's clear this out. And then I'm going to do one last little exercise here. I'm going to comment out all my stuff. And then our goal, let's write our goal statement, is to learn more about comparison. All right, so here we're just going to console.log out a bunch of stuff. A bunch of different little ideas. So let's try comparison. 1 is less than 3. What do you think will happen? What do you think console.log will say? What is this comparison going to give us back? Think about it. All right, hopefully you have a good guess in your head. Let's run it. What's the console say? True. So any types of comparisons will always return a true-false value. So here, 1 is less than 3. That's true. Absolutely true. Let's change this and say, okay, well, what if, let's say 1 is greater than 3. Let's run this and see what happens. What's the console gonna say? Let's find out. False. Of course that's false. Somebody's like, oh yeah, 1 is greater than 3, and you'd be like, no, it's not. It's totally false. What are you talking about? So that's what JavaScript does for you too. And that's sort of the basis for how loops work. All right, so let's think of some other types of comparisons that we could have. 1 equals 3. Hold up. Equals. Where else do we use that? How about let dog equal true? Now, computers are dumb. Computers are super dumb. So this kind of equals and this kind of equals. It doesn't know the difference. It's like, oh, you're setting 1 to 3. Cool. So let's just try running this and see what the console gives us, because I'm really curious. But this isn't a comparison. This is a problem. Let's see. Aha. Okay. Syntax error. Invalid assignment. Left-hand side. And what this is saying is you use the equals to try and assign 1 to 3. That's not a thing. JavaScript's like, no. That's not how this works. So to compare, you would have to use 2 equals. 2 equals minimum. Let's run this and see what happens. False. Excellent. How about if we do 3 equals 3? Run. True. Let's try something weird. Let's try throwing this in a string. I want to see what happens. Does 3 equal 3? We'll find out. Let's run this. Let's see what happens. True. Wait, whoa. No. These aren't the same. No, this is a number 3. And this is a string 3. We don't want those equal. No. So this is called strict versus non-strict equality. Strict equality checks both the type of the variable and the value of the variable. So here with not strict equality, what's the opposite of strict? Unstrict equality? Lazy equality. Let's just call it lazy equality. With lazy lax equality, it'll be like, oh yeah, they're kind of the same, true, sure. But let's use strict equality to make sure, no, we really want to make sure this is the exact same type and the exact same value. Add 1 more equal sign to make that happen. Let's clear, run. And now in the console log, we're getting false. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. That's why you always want to use strict comparison, strict equality. Those triple equals marks, just get in the habit of doing it. Here, let's run one more time, removing the quotes around this. So this is a number versus a number. And now we will see that on our second run, it's true. So here, with strict equality, string versus number, one more time, we're going to get a false. Number versus number, we're going to get a true. Get the idea here? Getting the feel for this? Yeah. Always use that strict equality. You don't want to let the computer be lax. Computers are dumb. They are super dumb. You're not dumb. The computer is. So don't let the computer get away with anything than the best possible equality. You are going to keep this nice and strict. All right, so always use the triple equals. That is your best practice for today. All right, so how about does not equal? Here, let's check if 3 does not equal 3. Gonna run that one more time. What do you think's gonna happen? Think about it in your brain while this is running. False. If you said false, you'd be absolutely right. How about if we change this first number to 1? Does 1 not equal 3? Yeah, that seems pretty true. Let's find out. True. So you're getting the hang of it, right? Comparison always spits back a true false. True and false is going to depend on the type and the type of comparison that you're doing. So remember what you have here. You have less than, you have strict equality, you have strict inequality, does not equal, you have greater than, and you have all those things that you probably learned in math. Less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Get back into some of those, like, oh man, algebra's like way back in there. Just pull that knowledge back in, and you're going to be using it here today. Not too much, but just a little bit. I promise. It's like real easy. You'll get it real quick. So that's true, false, and comparison. That's how you get through loops. That's how you test whether or not you should do something. So some things that we covered today in this video. We talked about if statements. What should you do if something is true? Or you could also do if something is false, right? That's another type of condition you can check. We combined that if statement with a for loop so that we could loop through our Animal Crossing characters and say, if they're a dog, go ahead and say whether or not they're a dog in the console, or say they're not a dog. Either way. So we got some practice looping through and accessing properties in our objects. And we talked a lot about true and false and how comparison works. So remember, you always want 3 equal signs, strict equality. Do not use 1 equals sign. That's for assigning a variable. And remember, computers are dumb, so it's not going to let you do that. It's going to give you an error. You see an error when you're trying to check equality, make sure you've got 3 equals signs. I'll bet you that's it. And we also talked about some of those comparison operators. So the greater than, I don't know which way this goes on the camera. But imagine our brackets here, right? The greater than or equal to, right? That's combining that sign with the equal sign, less than or equal to, and less than. And those will all produce true or false values that help loops, if statements, things like that, decide whether or not they need to continue on. Whew! So much learning in one day, huh? So next we're going to talk a little bit about chaining those pieces together and how to actually use some of these in practice. So I will see you in just a moment.